Alright, thank you for watching. We're doing a small little message here on supply, demand, economics from the Bible. The way the economics works, for example, in a market, if you have a person that's a seller in the market and they have a large supply of a certain product and there is a small demand for that product, in other words, they're not really moving that product in the market, what they're going to do is reduce the price of the product to increase the demand so people will buy the product. It's really simple to understand. So high supply, low demand, lower the price of the supply and the demand will increase. That's the dynamics of the market. And on the opposite side of this, let's say a seller has a small amount of supply, okay? And there are a lot of buyers in the market, big demand for that supply. The seller is going to increase the price of that supply because he knows he can make more money. And that's what it's all about in the market. It's all about supply and demand economics in the marketplace. And I'd like to take you to scriptures here and look at another scenario that shows supply and demand. And we're in 2 Kings chapter 6, and we'll start with verse 25. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it, until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. And what you got there is Samaria, and they're getting ready to be attacked. Syrian armies outside the camp, and they're getting ready to attack, and there's famine in the land, and there's such a small supply of food that the prices have gone real high. And as it said, you could charge like 80 pieces of silver for the head of a jackass. I mean, that's ridiculous. And 5 pieces of silver for a piece of bird's poo-poo. I mean, that's ridiculous as well. And that's supply-demand economics. Small amount of supply in the food chain equals higher prices. Okay? Supply-demand economics. Now, in the situation here, there's like 4 lepers in this particular night. The 4 lepers are going to leave, and they're already outside the camp, and they want food, and they're ready to die, and so they decide they're going to go over to where the Syrian host is. Okay, but before they went, Elijah gave a prophecy from God. Elijah says, "Tomorrow, about this time, shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, in the gate of Samaria." And what Elijah is saying is that tomorrow your food's going to get cheap again. And the people understand that, but that night those lepers leave from outside the camp, and they're heading towards the Syrian host. And during the night there, God spooked them. He spooked that whole encampment there. And what he did was he allowed them to hear the sound. He allowed the Syrians to hear the sounds of horsemen, and they're thinking that they're getting ready to be invaded. In other words, they get scared and they run. And when they run, they leave behind their tents, their horses, and their food, and everything. So the lepers go out there and they find this empty camp and all this food and everything. And they run back and tell the people in Samaria, and it's a long story there, but the Samaritans end up going over and getting everything that's left behind by the Syrians. And I'll read the verse to you. Verse 16, "And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord." And so they went out and found all this food. So now the food chain is increased again, and the demand's going back down, and so the prices have gotten cheaper. Like before they went out in the famine there, they could buy a jackass head for 80 pieces of silver, and some bird poo-poo for like 5 pieces of silver, okay, which is all really ridiculous. Low supply of food and big demand, that's what happens, the price goes up. Well, now the next day they went to the Syrian camp, got all this food, got all this free stuff, and so now they have increased supply of food, and demand's going back down, so the price is going back down. So that's the way that all worked out. The thing about supply-demand economics is if you have big supply and low demand that you got to drop the price of the supply to increase the demand. That's the way a market would work. And a good person in the market, a good professional salesperson, if they know what they're doing, if they have a limited supply of a certain product and there's a big demand for that product, they're going to increase the price of that supply to make as much money as they can off that product. So pretty simple to understand there. Anyway, hope this has been a blessing to you for watching.